Hey, good morning, and thank you for attending the Secure Web Coding, both at Public Works and some of you are online attending to the webinar. I appreciate you taking the time and taking this training course. It's 8-hour course spanning over 2 days. As you know, security is very important. We hear of a lot of breaches, both at private and public industries, and therefore, it's very important to be aware of the latest technologies in web and how to secure them. So we hope this training will provide you knowledge to create secure web applications and help keep county safe. Thank you once again, and I'll hand over the presentation to Jason.
So yeah, as was said, basically we've got really one day, right? We get 4 hours today, 4 hours tomorrow. So it's kind of one solid day where we get to talk as much as we can about security as it relates to developing web applications. So security is obviously a vast, huge topic. Some of it has to do with sort of particular details with the development technologies that you're using to build your web apps, whether it be Microsoft or Java or whatever. Other things apply equally across sort of all the different technologies and stacks available. So in this sort of one day, we'll try to touch on as many different things as we can, and we'll end up touching on quite a wide variety of different sort of issues and vulnerabilities and things like that. But what we like to do is, the goal really is to hopefully come out of this training just with kind of an adjusted sort of awareness and mindset. So when you're working on your web applications, you have certain things that you're sort of, you know, as at the forefront of your mind that you're thinking about related to security, kind of as you're building your apps. And then also we will, you know, go into some more detail on specific certain things, make sure hopefully that you don't have applications that are vulnerable to those specific things as well. A little bit about me. So Jason Bell, name. First started doing software on a TI-99 back in 1982. Woo! Still have it, still works. Don't make them like that anymore, right? Yeah. Spent 8 years as a member of the US Air Force, a few years over in Germany, and then the last 5 years at the Pentagon in DC, working on something called the Defense Message System for how to come up with a more modern way for securely sending classified messages desktop to desktop around the world, and sort of all the issues and things that go along with that. Around that time, about 1998 or so, got involved with Microsoft. They were helping us work on some of the components that we were using for that system. And it was also the time when kind of .NET was being born. So when Microsoft was trying to decide what language to use and make other decisions. Also around that time, I did a handful of books for Rocks Press. The red ones here you see, some of them have my name or my picture on the front. However, if you can still manage to find one of those, my recommendation would be do not buy it. .NET has now been around for, what are we looking at, 17 years almost. So this stuff was all version 1, and we're quite a ways past that now. So done some stuff for MSDN Magazine that possibly you might bump into around globalization and internationalization, so making your apps adapt to different cultures and languages and things. Been doing the training thing with Accelerate since 2004 or so. I'm also Accelerate's Director of Technology. So I'm sort of the, I don't know what you want to call it, the one responsible for the health, functionality, and security of all of our public-facing applications, as well as our internal applications too. So from time to time, I may actually pop up one of our applications and talk about sort of some of the things that we did in there. And so how I approach certain problems. I have a bunch of acronyms on my name. Most of them are Microsoft. I did Java programming for a few years. Also do Apple mobile development and, you know, a variety of other things as well. So yeah, cool. So because of our sort of compressed schedule and the number of folks we have, I usually like to kind of go around the room and have everybody introduce themselves and talk about what they're doing. But I'm going to save you from that. We're not going to do that just because of the amount of time that takes up and stuff. So for this class, we'll skip that. But I may ask you a couple questions along the way as far as what you guys work on and stuff. All right, so for our training session today and tomorrow, we've got a few things. First is slides. So that's the spiral bound book that all of you in the room here have. This guy. If you don't have one, let me know. There's extras up here. I can give you one. And so those are the ones I'll be putting up on the screen. I try to just not read off the slides, obviously, but the slides are there because they keep us on track, make sure we, define certain terms and what have you. But I will be flipping back and forth between slides and Visual Studio and IIS Manager and web browser and different things, and try to mix and match, right? Do that as much as we can. There's also a GitHub page. So this URL that's up here on the screen right now is github.com classroom code LACPW. If you were to go there, you would see a page that looks like this. And what I would recommend you do is either make a note of this or maybe go ahead and go there now with a web browser and just kind of keep it open. I'll put the URL back up in a second. But basically what's here now is there's a slides.pdf, which is an electronic version of what you have in the book in front of you. And for those of you that are on the webinar, if you look in the handout section of the webinar interface, there's also a link to the PDF there, or you can grab it here from the GitHub. There's also a over-posting demo, which is a Visual Studio solution that I'm going to demo later today. And there's two links. There's one link that says Classroom WebGoat Instance, which I will talk about. And then there's another link to the OWASP Top 10, which we'll also talk about. The other thing I'll use this for, though, is as we work our way through today and tomorrow, if folks have questions or things, what I may do is I may reference some sort of location on the web or some book or whatever. I'll try to remember to put the links up here. So you don't have to worry too much about like trying to write down big URLs or something like that. Or if we do some additional sample code or something in response to questions, this also gives me a place where I can post that as well. Okay, so I'm going to leave this page up probably for a couple weeks so that you can come back here to get the things and look at things that are up here. Okay, cool. So let me put that URL back up there if you need it, right there. Okay, and so this is sort of our top level agenda. Okay, so we'll start off with a little bit of introduction, just talking about security in general. We have a section on what we call threat modeling, which we'll spend a little time talking about kind of what web applications look like from the other side of the fence. So in other words, from sort of the black hat or bad guy side, right? And so what it would look like if you were the attacker and you were trying to penetrate somebody else's web application, what kind of does that process look like? What are the steps you take to sort of profile and then eventually take action against your target? And it's good to know that a little bit, because the more you're sort of aware of how that process works and you understand kind of how the other side thinks in a way, it can help you when you're trying to figure out how to make your applications more secure. But it also helps you because when you're looking at things like your logs and seeing what requests are being made to your application, you may recognize certain patterns and certain actions and sort of say, hey, I understand what this person's trying to do to my app here, because I kind of learned about that a little bit when we talked about that in the training. So we'll talk about that some. Okay, it'll be good. It's kind of fun. Then we'll talk about injection, which forms the basis for several of the other vulnerabilities that we'll talk about. We have a section dedicated to cross-site scripting, what that's all about, and sort of why folks like to try to pull off that kind of attack. Content security policy, which is one that's a really, really useful mechanism that we have available to modern web applications now, but one that we see folks not using as much as they probably should be. And we'll talk about why that is and how you can not be in that camp. And then HTTPS and TLS. So setting that up in your web application, not so much how you actually do the details of setting it up, but sort of when you would do it, why you do it, and some extra layers that we can sort of add on to really use HTTPS to its maximum effect with our web applications. Okay, and that's pretty much going to be today's session, right? To get us through those first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections. And then tomorrow will be about access control, so authentication and authorization. Again, that's another very sort of vast topic of options. However, we want to talk about kind of what the different options and protocols are out there, why you choose one versus another, and ways to think creatively about how to secure your applications, but in the simplest way possible. Because sometimes what leads to security vulnerabilities is making your application more complicated than it needs to be. So even the people on the team don't really understand how things work. So that can lead to issues. And then REST and web APIs. So some of the security things that we're going to talk about apply to any web application. Some other ones are more specific to when we're talking about things like services and APIs and stuff about that. Some stuff around best practices with single page applications. Specifically, I'll mention some stuff that's specific to React, and then file upload and file IO security, because this can be one where if you need folks to be able to upload files to your application, especially just from the wide open internet, there are definitely some things we want to make sure we have in place and some things to think about to make sure that bad things don't happen. Okay.